The clinking of silverware had died down, leaving only the faint crackle of the fireplace and the heavy silence that followed my mother's words. My heart thudded in my chest as though the whole world had tilted to make room for her sentence. "You're the most useless child we have," she had said casually, almost lazily, like she was commenting on the weather, yet her voice carried a sharpness that cut deeper than glass. The room froze. My father lowered his fork. My siblings exchanged nervous glances, their eyes darting between me and her like spectators awaiting the first move in a dangerous game. I felt the blood rush to my ears, but instead of sinking into my chair and swallowing the humiliation like I always had, something inside me snapped, quietly but decisively. I straightened my back, fixed my eyes on her across the table, and said, "Then maybe it's time you realized why you're so wrong." The words weren't loud, but the weight of them made the room shift. My younger sister gasped softly, and even my father's jaw tightened. My mother's lips curved into a cold, amused smile, like she had been waiting for this moment, daring me to finally challenge her. "Oh?" she said smoothly, swirling the wine in her glass as though this were a performance. "And what, exactly? Have you done that proves otherwise?" I leaned forward, my fingers tightening around the edge of the table. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid. My voice came out steady, almost calm, though my heart was hammering like a war drum. "More than you think. And the truth is, the reason you call me useless is because I remind you of the parts of yourself you'd rather forget." The smile on her face faltered, just slightly but enough to notice. The silence thickened. My eldest brother shifted uncomfortably, as if debating whether to step in. But even he knew something bigger was unfolding. "You've always told us who we are," I continued, my voice gathering strength. "But tonight, I think it's time. Someone finally told you who you are." The air seemed to tighten, like the whole house was holding its breath. My mother set her glass down with a deliberate clink, her eyes narrowing, her mask of superiority beginning to crack. For the first time in my life, she looked unsettled, and that, more than anything, gave me the courage to keep going. And then the room seemed to close in on itself, as though the walls were leaning closer, listening. My mother's eyes locked onto mine, twin shards of glass that had once terrified me as a child. But now, in this strange, charged silence, I saw something else flicker there. Hesitation. It was tiny, quick, almost invisible, but it was enough. My siblings saw it too. I could tell by the way my younger sister's breath caught, by how my brother's fork stilled midair. For years, we had all lived under the unshakable truth that our mother was unbreakable, her authority absolute. Yet here, now, in the hush of Christmas night, something in her facade trembled. I pushed forward before she could rebuild it. "You think I'm useless because I don't fit your picture," I said, my voice low but cutting through the quiet. "Because I never played the role you wanted for me. You wanted trophies, polished smiles, a family that paraded itself like ornaments on a tree. But you never asked who we actually were. You never cared what any of us felt. You decided. And anyone who didn't match that vision, you called them a failure." Her fingers twitched near the stem of her glass. "That's enough," she murmured, but the command lacked its usual fire. "No," I said, and the words startled even me. It came out louder, firmer, carrying years of swallowed anger. "For once, it's not enough. I'm tired of being your scapegoat, tired of sitting here year after year, listening to you break us down while pretending it's tradition. I've stayed quiet because I thought maybe silence would keep this family together. But the truth is, your words are the reason we're drifting apart." My eldest brother shifted again, his face caught between fear and relief, like he had been waiting decades for someone to say what we all knew but never dared voice. My younger sister's eyes filled, shimmering with something dangerously close to gratitude. And still, the only sound from my mother was her breathing, measured, shallow, strained. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped suddenly, the sharpness returning to her tone, as though she had caught herself teetering and snapped the mask back into place. "You've always been dramatic, twisting things to make yourself the victim." I shook my head. "No, I'm not the victim here. We all are. Every single one." of us has bent ourselves into shapes to avoid your wrath. But I'm done twisting. Tonight, I won't play the role you've written for me. A log shifted in the fireplace with a crack, sending sparks into the air, the sound startling in the silence. My father cleared his throat as if to speak, but stopped, his eyes darting to my mother like he was asking silent permission that never came. That detail hit me harder than I expected. My own father, waiting for her approval, just like the rest. Of us. The realization settled like ice in my stomach, but it also fueled me. I looked directly at him. "You've let this happen," I said quietly, almost trembling but refusing to look away. "Year after year you watched, you knew, and you never said a word. You let her treat us this way because it was easier than standing up. Do you realize what that's done to us? To me?" He looked down, shame creeping across his features, his silence more damning than anything my mother could say. My mother's hand slammed the table suddenly, the plates rattling. "That's enough," she barked, her voice rising, the queen of the room reclaiming her throne. "You think you're so brave, standing there throwing accusations on Christmas night? You're nothing but a disappointment, a child who never measured up." But this time, her words didn't pierce me. They slid past, hollow, like arrows shot without a bowstring. I straightened further, my voice calm in contrast to hers. "If I'm such a disappointment, why are you the one who looks afraid, right? Now?" Her eyes widened, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough for the truth to be laid bare in the open, visible to everyone at the table. She was afraid of losing control, afraid of being seen not as the flawless mother she demanded we believe she was, but as something far more fragile. Human. The silence after my words was unbearable, heavy enough to make my younger sister finally whisper, almost to herself, "He's right." The sound cracked through the air like thunder. My mother turned sharply toward her, the fury in her face enough to turn anyone else to stone. But my sister didn't back down this time. Her eyes, though wet, were steady. "He's right," she repeated louder, her voice trembling but determined. "You always make us feel small. Every year, every holiday, you remind us we're not enough for you. And I'm tired of it too." The room fractured then. My eldest brother leaned forward, pressing his palms flat to the table, his voice low and raw. "So am I." The dam had broken. For years, we had lived in the shadow of one voice, one woman whose presence dominated every gathering, every dinner, every moment. But tonight, with a single sentence, the silence was unraveling. One by one, we were stepping out from under her grip, her face hardened, her gaze darting from one of us to the other like she was calculating how to regain her hold. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. And in that moment, as the fire crackled and the snow whispered against the windows outside, I realized something had shifted forever in that room. The spell she had cast for years was breaking, but just as I felt the faintest breath of freedom, she leaned back slowly in her chair, her eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. A strange calm washed over her face, and she said, almost whispering, "You think you've won tonight, but you have no idea what you've started." The words dripped with menace, carrying something colder than anger. Promise. My siblings stiffened, and my father's hands clenched under the table. A chill ran down my spine, not from fear of her anymore, but from the unmistakable sense that this battle was only the beginning of something larger, something we weren't ready for. Because in her tone, I heard it. The certainty of someone who still held secrets, buried like knives, waiting to be unsheathed. The firelight flickered across her face, highlighting the sharpness of her cheekbones and the thin, cruel smile that was slowly creeping back into place. Her words still hung in the air, heavy and poisonous, wrapping around the room like smoke. I tried to read her expression, tried to understand what she meant. But the more I stared, the more unsettled I became. She wasn't bluffing. That much was clear. There was something she knew, something she had been waiting to unleash. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully, my voice steady but my stomach twisting with unease. Her gaze slid over each of us, slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the tension. She took her time, reaching for her glass and lifting it again, sipping calmly while the rest of us sat frozen. "You really believe you've uncovered the truth tonight, don't you?" she said at last, her tone soft, mocking. You think your little outburst makes you brave, but bravery is useless without knowledge. And you, my dear, know so very little about this family. A shiver crawled down my back. She wasn't yelling anymore. She didn't need to. That calmness in her voice was worse than her fury. My siblings exchanged uneasy glances, and I could see the doubt creeping into their eyes. Had we just stepped into something far more dangerous than we realized? What don't we know? My eldest brother demanded suddenly, his voice hard, though I could see the tension in his jaw. He was the one who rarely spoke against her, the one who always tried to keep the peace. But even he was breaking now. Her eyes snapped to him, and for a moment they softened almost imperceptibly. Oh, darling, she whispered, if you knew half of what I've done for this family, you'd be thanking me on your knees. The words sent a ripple of confusion through us. Done for this family? It didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like pride. My younger sister frowned, her voice shaking. What are you talking about? What could you possibly mean? My mother leaned back, folding her arms with an air of superiority, her smile growing as if she had been waiting for this question all along. You want honesty? She said, tilting her head. You think you're ready for it? Fine. Let's talk about secrets. Let's talk about how everything you think you know about yourselves is nothing more than a story I've allowed you to believe. I felt my throat tighten. What are you saying? She looked at me directly now, her eyes glittering. I'm saying, child, that your place at this table, your entire life, isn't as simple as you think. The silence after her words was deafening. My heart pounded in my ears. I wanted to speak, to demand clarity, but my lips refused to move. My siblings were staring at her too, their faces pale, their bodies tense, as though each of us already knew that whatever she was about to reveal would shatter everything. My father shifted suddenly, clearing his throat, his voice low. Enough, Margaret. His tone was more forceful than I'd ever heard from him, but his hands were trembling on the table. He wasn't trying to stop her for us. He was trying to stop her because he knew exactly what she was about to say. That realization hit me like ice water. Don't you dare silence me, my mother snapped, the calmness breaking for the first time. You've hidden behind your silence long enough. If they want the truth, let them have it. It's time. Time for what? I finally forced out, my voice barely more than a whisper. She looked at me again, her smile curling at the edges. Time for you to understand why you've always been different, why you've always been expendable. My chest constricted. The word echoed in my mind, suffocating me. Expendable. What do you mean by that? My voice cracked now. Anger and fear colliding in my throat. Her expression shifted, something darker taking hold. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping lower, intimate, almost conspiratorial. You don't belong to this family in the way you think you do. Gasps filled the room, my sister covering her mouth, my brother pushing back his chair, his eyes wide. My father's head dropped into his hands, his shoulders heaving with silent dread. Every nerve in my body screamed. What are you talking about? Her smile widened, cold and triumphant. You were never meant to be here. You were never mine. Not truly. The words slammed into me, stealing the air from my lungs. I couldn't process them, couldn't understand them, but every instinct told me she wasn't lying. She wanted to hurt me, yes, but this wasn't cruelty invented on the spot. This was something she had held on to, sharpened, and now decided to finally use. My younger sister broke the silence, her voice trembling. You can't just say something like that. What does that even mean? It means, my mother said, smoothly, her voice like velvet wrapping around a blade, that he is not your brother by blood. He never was. The room tilted. My vision blurred at the edges, and I had to grip the table to keep from collapsing. My father groaned, a sound torn from deep within him, but he didn't deny it. He didn't speak. He didn't save me. I looked at him, desperate, searching his face for any sign that she was lying, that this was just another manipulation. But his silence was the answer I feared most. My mother's eyes glittered in the firelight, victorious. Now tell me, my useless child, do you still think you're ready to challenge me? Do you still think you belong at this table? Her words were like knives, cutting through the fragile threads holding me together. My siblings stared at me, shock and confusion etched across their faces, and in that moment, I felt the ground beneath me collapse. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my place in this family, was gone. And yet, somewhere beneath the despair, beneath the dizziness and the rage, something else sparked. A dangerous, burning need for the truth. The air in the dining room grew thick, heavy with the weight of her revelation. My heart hammered in my chest, but somewhere inside me a clarity began to form. I could feel my siblings' eyes on me, torn between shock and fear. But I could also sense something shifting in them, a recognition that whatever truth my mother had unleashed, it didn't change who I was to them. It couldn't. I steadied my breathing, pushing back the panic clawing at my ribs. "So what?" I said finally, my voice raw but unshaken. My mother blinked, clearly not expecting that. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table, every ounce of energy channeling into the words that followed. "So what if I'm not your blood? So what if I don't fit into your perfect little picture? I am still here. I grew up in this house. I survived every cruel word you threw at me. I built myself, in spite of you. That doesn't make me useless. It makes me stronger than you will ever be." My sister reached for my hand, her fingers trembling but firm. "You're my brother," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "No matter what she says, you always will be." My eldest brother nodded, his jaw clenched but his voice steady. "You're part of us. Nothing she reveals changes that. If anything, it changes how we see her." My father finally lifted his head, his face pale, his eyes wet. He opened his mouth, then closed it, shame burning across his features. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "I should have told you years ago," he said. "It's true. You're not her child. But you are mine. I made a choice. And I will not let her use that truth as a weapon against you anymore." My mother scoffed, her mask cracking as the balance of the room shifted. "You think that makes him part of this family? You think pity and half-truths will change what he is? He will never belong." But for the first time, her words didn't land. For the first time, her voice did not command the room. My siblings rose to their feet, slowly but in unison, standing beside me. Even my father, though broken and burdened by guilt, pushed back his chair and came to my side. I looked directly at her, my voice calm but filled with finality. "Maybe I wasn't born into this family. Maybe that's your truth. But family isn't made by blood alone. It's made by who stands with you when everything falls apart. And tonight, for the first time, this family is standing together. Not with you. Against you." Her face contorted, rage twisting her features. But the sight no longer filled me with fear. She slammed her fists on the table, rattling the dishes, but the sound no longer carried power. It was the desperate noise of a ruler losing her throne. I stepped forward, every ounce of pain and strength I carried boiling into my final words. "You called me useless. But without me, this family would still be trapped in your shadow. Without me, they'd still be too afraid to see the truth. Tonight, you lost control. And nothing you say or do can change that." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the crackle of the fire. My mother's eyes darted from one of us to the other, searching for cracks, for hesitation, but there were none left to exploit. We stood together, and in that unity, she was powerless. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the floor. She rose slowly, her face pale, her lips pressed tight, but there was no victory in her expression now. She turned without another word and left the dining room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway until the sound faded into nothing. For the first time in years, the house was quiet, truly quiet. No heavy words lingering in the air, no invisible chains keeping us bound. My siblings and I exchanged glances, tentative smiles breaking through the tears. My father put a trembling hand on my shoulder, his voice thick. "You've given us back our freedom," he said. I looked around at them, my chest swelling with something I had never felt at Christmas before. Not dread, not shame, but belonging. Not because of blood, not because of her, but because of the bond we had chosen to forge in defiance of her cruelty. The night that had begun with my mother's cruelest words had ended with her power shattered, and in its place, something new had been born: truth, unity, and a future no longer shackled by her shadow. And though the wounds would take time to heal, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was the first Christmas that truly belonged to us. Not to her. To us. To me. And as the firelight flickered across their faces, I felt something rise inside me. A strength, a triumph, a voice that could never again be silenced. I wasn't useless. I was the one who had finally set us free.